8:39 here, Big 550 KTRS. David Stokes is with us. He is with the Show Me Institute. He is a policy analyst. Good morning, David Stokes.
Good morning, McGraw.
All right, let's talk a little Tesla because a couple weeks ago it was announced that the auto dealers of Missouri is suing the Department of Revenue because the Department of Revenue gave Tesla a license to sell cars in the state of Missouri.
Correct, and Tesla fully deserved that license, and
Yes.
the Department of Revenue did the right thing, and this lawsuit is, in my opinion, completely without merit, if I can fake it and sound like a lawyer there, instead of just saying indefensible.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second. I think, again, I don't speak for the auto dealers of Missouri, but I think they would tell you that they don't mind Tesla coming in and selling cars, but they think the rules should be the same for everybody. So if the rules say that you must have a dealership and you must go through all of these other things, and these other dealerships have to do this, why doesn't then Tesla have to do the same thing?
Well, it's my understanding that the rules don't say you have to have a dealership. That has been so common that people might assume it, and we have an entire set of laws, franchise laws,
Right.
in the state which govern the relationships between companies and their franchisees, in this case auto dealers, and
Right.
the relationship between Ford or General Motors or whomever. But there's nothing in the law that says you have to use an auto dealer if you want to be a car that wants to sell in Missouri, nor should there be. There's no reason that you should force the auto dealer model on a new car company. The franchise law governs the relationship once you choose to enter that style of business where you have the auto dealer and
Right.
make use of that.
I have been told two different things. I've been told that the law is murky. The Department of Revenue really is not sure. There's one law that says you don't. There's another law that says you do. So the auto dealer is saying, hey, we've all been playing by these sets of rules. Now you're saying these rules don't apply. So the auto dealers, I think, again, playing devil's advocate. But I would also be much more sympathetic to Tesla's cause if they weren't one of the world's worst at getting all sorts of tax subsidies from the American federal government.
Well, they get an enormous number of tax subsidies. And one of the reasons, simply enough, that at Show Me Institute, we focused on the Missouri dealership case in which Tesla is in the right, in our opinion,
Yeah.
and the auto dealers are just protecting their turf.
Right.
Well, we're a state and local think tank. We focus on Missouri issues.
Right.
So that's what we write about. But the national and state tax credits they receive from other states,
Right.
from California and Nevada in particular, is enormous. They've gotten, I've been doing some research on this for you.
Yeah.
They received a decade or so ago an enormous loan from the federal government to help keep going, to help with research
Right.
and development. Now, Tesla, to their credit, paid off that loan early, and so they've paid that off completely. Now, they still get...
Now, hold on a second. Back up a
They
second.
still get plenty of other subsidies, though.
We also had a guy on from the National Review. What's the Republican conservative magazine we had on? The National Review? Was that?
National Review,
Yeah. He was on here last week saying that they paid that off early, but instead of paying it off early, they offered up more stock, diluted the stock, gave it back. So they sort of played fast and loose with all of this. So really, the federal government didn't get everything they said they were going to get back. Tesla took care of them, type of deal. So it was a boondoggle for Tesla. The federal government didn't get what they wanted. And he said that the American taxpayer is paying $30,000 per every time Tesla sells a car.
And I believe that, and it's enormous. Now, let's also be fair that Chrysler and General Motors were bailed out by the federal government a
Yes.
few years ago. Chrysler's been bailed out multiple times.
Yes.
Ford...
They paid it back. They paid that back for real.
Ford goes around to every one of their plants like they did in Kansas City and demands enormous amounts of subsidies in order to keep the plants open.
Yes.
But I think these are companies that sell hundreds of thousands or millions of cars a year. Tesla sells a couple thousand. So on a scale, yes, Tesla is enormously subsidized at the federal level and at the state level. Much of their profit, the fact that they are a profitable company, comes from the emissions credits that they sell in California. Since they produce a car that has very few emissions, if any.
Right.
They're able to sell emissions credits that other car companies have to buy in order to operate in California. They make a substantial profit doing that, and that is, in the end, public money. So there's no doubt that, and this is the type of thing that it's great that people know and people get to consider that Teslas, they're beautiful cars, they're well-built cars, but they're heavily, heavily subsidized by federal taxpayers and California and Nevada, which just has given them a huge subsidy to operate a new plant there.
Yeah, and the other thing about Tesla that I think, because it's the shiny new, it's got good PR, right? I mean, we can all agree that Tesla's got cool PR, but they're making an electric car. Great. All the other companies are making electric cars. So it isn't like Tesla has, invented this electric car. You've got all of them make some type of electric car that is actually selling a lot more than the actual Tesla car. So Tesla, while being, having good PR, when the rubber meets the road, pun intended, the other ones are doing bigger, better, and better cars. So what's the big deal with Tesla?
Now, some of the tax subsidies that Tesla gets, some of them, are also available to other electric car companies.
Okay,
there's this tax credit you get when you buy one out in California. They have a state tax credit, and I believe there's a federal one as well.
Yeah.
So Tesla may be getting a lot of press for that, but if GM builds an electric car and sells it, those things go to GM as well.
Sure.
Tesla's just mastered getting some from the federal government. From the research I've got, they get subsidies to battery research in Japan and China because they need advanced batteries, because they know they can't make that next leap to a bigger car company until they start selling less expensive cars that have to still go as far on a charge as their very expensive one they currently sell. They can't do that without significant improvements in batteries.
The guy at National Review said they're worse than Solyndra, which, in terms of a conservative entity saying worse than Solyndra, there was nothing worse than Solyndra. It was Obama, and then it was Solyndra. So to say that Tesla is as bad or worse than Solyndra, that's some pretty damning commentary.
I'm going to have to disagree with him on that. And I did read some National Review writings on Tesla. Look, Solyndra and our state example would be the Mamtech scandal in Moberly, which was a tax credit total spectacular failure. I mean, some of these had an element of fraud to them, in particular Mamtech, there was fraud in that. There's no fraud in Tesla. They might be more generously getting tax subsidies than they should. And your listeners know how we feel about tax subsidies at the Show Me Institute. We're strongly opposed to them in the vast majority of cases. But I don't agree that there's. I don't agree that.
No, I
Tesla
know what you're
has the
saying.
fraud element that the others may have.
I know what you're saying. You're saying even though Tesla shouldn't be getting any of these tax subsidies and shouldn't be getting any of these benefits, you still think they're two separate issues.
Oh, the dealership issue here in Missouri? Absolutely. Two completely separate issues. Those subsidies, as unjustified as I believe they are, in most cases, and I'm not completely opposed to every tax credit for somebody who purchases an electric car. I mean, there are the ones that are broad and available to all and don't favor Tesla. I mean, there's an argument for that. But none of that, justifies the auto dealers suing to prevent Tesla from selling direct to a consumer in Missouri. It's no different than saying Amazon can't operate in Missouri or somebody who sells.
Except that Amazon isn't playing by the same rules as Bob's Stationery Store, because Bob's Stationery Store has to pay local, state, and taxes, whereas Amazon doesn't. So Amazon gets a free pass to sell cheaper goods in here.
Again,
so that's
like
two different
Tesla,
arguments.
Like Tesla, that's a matter of tax treatment for these companies. Nobody would propose that Amazon can't sell something to my house or to your house in Missouri. Maybe they should be treated differently from a tax perspective, but they should be able to sell.
But you're putting your local businesses at a disadvantage to somebody else who's being subsidized all the way down the line. So why would we as a state allow somebody who needs a license to come in to hurt our own businesses?
Well, again, the solution to that might be to change the tax structure for Amazon. And I don't actually think we should. But the solution is not, don't allow people to sell direct to a consumer.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to ban FedEx and UPS because you have to go to a store. I mean,
well, that's a little bit different. But if I can buy a TV online and save $1,500 in taxes as opposed to going to a brick and mortar store here, I'm putting the brick and mortar store here at a competitive disadvantage.
You're buying one heck of an expensive TV.
Well, you know what I mean. I was just making up numbers.
If the 7% sales tax comes to $1,500,
feels like
I want to go to the next Super Bowl party at your house.
So, but unlike the Uber and Lyft argument, is Uber and Lyft isn't getting any financial backing from any organization. That's just a pure business straight up.
Correct, and Uber and Lyft would pay. They may not agree that they have to pay the taxi cab license, but the taxes that they would pay for operating in Missouri would be the same as other taxi cab companies.
Yeah,
correct.
Exactly.
Which in those cases is mostly, licenses aside, is mostly just going to be the gas tax to operate, which of course is the same whether you're Uber, Lyft, or a mom carpooling or a cab.
But I mean, you're not, Uber and Lyft isn't paying less for insurance, and they're not paying less for a car, and they're not paying less for anything else.
Correct.
Yeah. So the rules are the same for both, whereas the rules here, I think, are different. But where can we read you, and where can we see more about this, and where can we tell you how wrong you are?
We have so much information at showmeinstitute.org and showmedaily.org on these questions of licensing and anti-competitive behavior. And this is, I think, attempts to keep Tesla out unless they use dealers. I think that's anti-competitive behavior. At the same point, it's important that consumers and taxpayers know how heavily subsidized they are so that they can take that into consideration. Showmeinstitute.org, and people can follow me on Twitter at David C. Stokes.
That's David Stokes, 850 here, Big Five.